Have you ever felt the sting of shame after an outburst, a moment where a tempest of emotion took the helm and steered you onto the rocks of regret? Have you ever felt the silent judgment of others, their respect for you diminishing, not because of a flaw in your character, but because of a moment's loss of control? You are not alone. So many of us have been taught that to be emotional is to be authentic, to be true to ourselves. We've been told that feeling deeply is a sign of a vibrant soul. But what if this belief, this comfortable illusion, is the very chain that keeps us bound? What if this so-called authenticity is a form of spiritual slavery, a surrender of our divine authority to the fleeting whims of impulse? The great philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche offered a radical truth. He who cannot command himself must obey. And that is the nature of all weak men. This statement may sting, it may feel harsh, but within it lies a key to unlocking a level of personal power and genuine respect that you may have only dreamed of. This is not a message for the faint of heart. It is a call to awakening for those who are tired of being a ship tossed on the waves of their own emotions, for those who feel a deep yearning to become the sovereign ruler of their inner kingdom. If this message resonates with the deepest part of your being, if you feel that divine spark of recognition, then you are in the right place. Stay with me on this journey, and let us explore the sacred path to self-mastery. Let this be a moment of alignment for you. If you feel the truth in these words, acknowledge it with a like, subscribe, to continue this journey of awakening, and share in the comments below the one word, awake, to affirm your commitment to commanding yourself. You are not alone in this battle, and your story matters. Let us first dismantle a pervasive and damaging myth, an illusion that has kept countless souls in a state of quiet desperation. The belief that emotional control is the same as emotional repression. How many times have you heard it whispered that someone who masters their feelings is cold, distant, almost inhuman? How often is the person who holds back tears in the face of sorrow, or who maintains a calm and centered presence amidst a storm of anger, accused of bottling things up, of running away from their own truth? This modern view, while seeming sensitive and enlightened, is a profound misunderstanding of the soul's true potential. It is a great deception, and Nietzsche would have been the first to see through its flimsy facade. He would laugh at this mistake, not with scorn, but with the clarity of one who understood the raw, untamed nature of the human spirit. For Nietzsche, emotional control has absolutely nothing to do with suffocating what you feel. It is not about building a dam to stop the river of your emotions, for that river will only build in pressure until it bursts forth in a destructive flood. It is not about silencing the inner monster, caging it in the darkest dungeon of your psyche until it breaks its chains with a roar of uncontrollable rage. True mastery, true spiritual alchemy, is about something far more profound and powerful. It is about recognizing that your emotions are a form of raw, divine energy. They are like a block of uncut marble, filled with infinite potential. The person who practices repression sees this marble, and fearing its rough edges and immense weight, chooses to hide it away in a dark basement, pretending it does not exist. They deny its reality, and in doing so, they deny themselves the possibility of creating anything beautiful from it. The master, the true artist of the soul, does the opposite. They look upon this raw block of emotion, this anger, this fear, this sorrow, and they see the masterpiece sleeping within. They do not hide it, they bring it into the light. With the tools of discipline, awareness, and an unshakable will, they begin to sculpt. They learn to feel the contours of the stone, to understand its grain, its strengths, and its weaknesses. They do not destroy the emotion, they give it form. They transform its raw power into something of beauty, strength, and purpose. This is the great work. Mastering emotions means recognizing each internal shadow, each flicker of feeling, without fear or shame, and then, consciously, powerfully, deciding what to do with it. It is the sacred art of transmuting the lead of raw impulse into the gold of intentional action. The fundamental problem is never in the feeling itself, but in becoming a hostage to that feeling. The man who is a slave to his anger, who lashes out at every perceived slight, is not free. He is a puppet whose strings are pulled by the outside world. The woman who is paralyzed by her fear, who shrinks from every challenge, is not safe. She has built her own prison, and her fear is the jailer. Those who live in this reactive state are tragically predictable. A single word can ignite their rage, a single glance can trigger their insecurity, a single setback can plunge them into despair. And a person who is predictable, Nietzsche knew, is a person who is easily manipulated. They are clay in the hands of others, easily shaped and controlled by anyone who understands which buttons to push. This is the silent tragedy of a life lived in reaction. It is a life that is not truly lived at all, but rather one that is constantly being acted upon by forces both internal and external. To break free from these invisible chains, you must first understand the true nature of your emotions. Nietzsche did not see them as mere fleeting whims or psychological quirks. He perceived them as powerful, primal forces of nature that reside within every human soul. For him, each emotional impulse is a manifestation of the universe's raw energy, a force of nature in its purest, most untamed state. Think of your anger not as a flaw, but as a wildfire. Think of your sorrow not as a weakness, but as a deep, powerful ocean. Think of your fear not as a failing, but as a lightning storm. These forces are brutal, intense, and at times, seemingly irresistible. It is as if within every human being there are storms ready to form, earthquakes capable of shaking the very foundations of our lives, and volcanoes on the verge of eruption. In this dramatic inner landscape, the greatest risk is not in feeling these powerful forces. The true danger lies in being completely and utterly dominated by them, in being swept away by the flood, consumed by the fire, or shattered by the quake. Many of us cling to the comforting illusion that we are rational beings, that our choices and actions are the product of careful thought and logical deliberation. But Nietzsche, with his piercing insight, saw the uncomfortable truth. He understood that most of what we do or say arises from the deep currents of our emotions long before the conscious mind, our reason, even has time to manifest a single thought. Our emotions are the true helmsmen of our lives, often silently, unconsciously, taking the wheel and charting our course. It is emotion that steers us towards one person and away from another. It is emotion that drives us to pursue one path with relentless passion and to abandon another in a fit of despair. It is emotion that fuels our greatest triumphs and orchestrates our most devastating failures. Consider the raw energy of anger. In an instant, it can transform us. Our breathing hardens, our gaze sharpens, our fists clench. The body is flooded with a heat that feels almost impossible to ignore. An urgent, primal desire to react, to strike out, to hurt, to prove a point. When this force is unleashed without restraint, it is profoundly destructive, leaving only ruins and regret in its wake. But Nietzsche saw something else within that fire. He realized that this same vital energy, when harnessed and directed by a conscious will, could be transformed. He saw that anger, when mastered, is no longer a destructive wildfire but a forge, a source of incredible heat that can be used to temper steel, to create courage, and to fuel an absolute focus capable of achieving the seemingly impossible. The question is never whether the fire exists, but who is in command, you or the flame. The same principle applies to fear. Fear is one of our most primitive feelings, an ancient survival mechanism deeply rooted in our biology. It exists to protect us, to alert us to danger, to keep us alive. It is a wise and necessary servant, but without mastery, this servant becomes a tyrant. Fear, when it takes control, turns into a prison. The walls of this prison are built from what-ifs and should-nots. The person trapped inside begins to avoid all risks, to suffocate their own dreams, to flee from the very battles that could transform them into who they are destined to be. They become small, limited, and safe, but their soul withers from a lack of challenge and expansion. Yet, Nietzsche believed that fear, when recognized and faced with courage, becomes a powerful tool. It transforms from paralyzing terror into strategic prudence. It becomes the wise counselor that helps us to assess risks accurately, to plan carefully, and to move forward with caution and intelligence, rather than being frozen by a phantom of the imagination. Even sadness, so often seen as a sign of weakness in our modern world, holds a profound power. The person who drowns in their sadness, who allows it to become an endless emotional swamp, loses the strength to react to the world. They become lost, fragile, and unable to bear the weight of life. But Nietzsche did not despise sadness. On the contrary, he saw it as essential raw material for the creation of depth. He knew that it is in moments of melancholy that we often find our capacity for the deepest reflection. It is from the well of sorrow that we can draw the waters of authentic compassion and sublime art. Many of the world's greatest poems, philosophies, and works of art were born not from simple joy, but from a sadness that was mastered, understood, and transformed into something beautiful and meaningful. In each of these emotions lies a raw potential, an energy that can either build or destroy. The difference lies only in who holds the reins. Nietzsche taught us that to live dominated by these impulses is to live a small, predictable, and vulnerable life. It is to walk through the world wearing an invisible sign around your neck that says, "Here are my emotional triggers, press them whenever you want." And in that state, no one earns genuine respect, because respect ultimately arises from the recognition of inner strength, the ability to stand firm even when everything around you screams for chaos. For Nietzsche, the entirety of humanity can be divided, almost cruelly, into two fundamental types of people: the reactive man and the active man. This division is not merely a matter of temperament or personality. It is a profound difference in how each individual engages with the very essence of life, with their own emotions, desires, and the constant stream of stimuli from the world around them. Understanding this distinction is fundamental to grasping his entire philosophy, for it is the difference between being a pawn in the game of life and becoming a player who shapes the board itself. The reactive man is one who lives at the mercy of what happens around him. He is a slave to the environment, to the gazes of others, to their words, and to the whims of chance. His life is a series of reactions. When someone provokes him, he reacts immediately, sometimes with a burst of fury, sometimes with a shrinking fear, sometimes with a bitter resentment. He does not choose his response. His response is chosen for him by the external trigger. When praised, he fills with pride, his sense of self-worth inflating like a balloon, entirely dependent on the breath of another's approval. When criticized, he sinks into shame, his spirit deflating just as quickly. His moods rise and fall like a small, rudderless boat amidst gigantic waves. There is no constancy, no solidity, no deep, unshakable center within him. He is shaped by the facts and events of the world, like pliable clay in the hands of others. Nietzsche saw this reactive man as someone who tragically wastes his own potential, because those who live by reacting never truly create. They are always too busy defending themselves, justifying their actions, fighting shadows, or desperately seeking approval. They are someone whose worth depends entirely on the environment, on the opinions of others, on the fleeting fashions of the moment, and for that reason, they do not and cannot earn genuine respect. Deep down, everyone senses this instability. Everyone intuitively understands that it only takes a small emotional push to throw this person off balance. And no one truly respects someone who is so easy to topple. They may be pitied, they may be feared for their unpredictable outbursts, but they are not held in high esteem. Their lack of self-command signals to the world that they are not in control of their own destiny. The active man, on the other hand, is an entirely different kind of creature. This does not mean he is without feeling. On the contrary, he may feel even more deeply than the reactive man, He feels fear, anger, sadness, and desire, but he does not become a slave to them. When provoked, he does not lash out blindly. He observes the feeling of anger rising within him, acknowledges its power, and then chooses how and when to act. When filled with anger, he transforms that raw flame into fuel to achieve his goals. He channels its intensity into focus and determination. When he feels fear, he analyzes its source. He discerns whether it is a useful warning pointing to a real danger or merely an irrational phantom, an old wound from the past. His emotions are not denied or repressed. They are acknowledged, understood, and used as tools. He is the sculptor of his own character, consciously shaping even the most brutal and primal forces that arise within him into a work of art. The active man creates values. The reactive man merely adopts ready-made values from his society, his family, or his peers. The active man shapes the world around him, while the reactive is shaped by the world. The active decides, the reactive reacts. And this, according to Nietzsche, is why respect and admiration naturally fall upon the active man. He conveys a sense of inner strength, of solidity, of mastery. He inspires a deep and abiding confidence. People may not be able to fully explain why. They may not consciously understand where this aura of authority comes from, but they feel it, and they bow before it. Nietzsche knew so well that only those who can overcome themselves can truly lead others, whether it is in a boardroom, in a relationship, or in the silent, everyday battle for one's own soul. But it is not enough to simply understand this difference intellectually. The question remains, how does one make the leap? How does one begin the sacred process of transforming this internal chaos into creative power, into a strength that earns genuine, unshakable respect? This is precisely what we are going to unveil now. At the very heart of Nietzsche's philosophy, behind all human strength and all human weakness, lies a fundamental principle, the will to power. And it is crucial that we understand this concept correctly, for we are not talking here about power in the vulgar, common sense. This is not about the desire to dominate people, to accumulate titles, or to acquire wealth merely for the sake of status. The will to power in Nietzschean philosophy is something much deeper, something almost biological. It is the vital, intrinsic force that drives all living beings to grow, to surpass themselves, to expand their limits, and to assert their individuality in the world. It is the will to impose one's own form upon the chaos that surrounds it. This force is the very essence of life. Everything that lives, according to Nietzsche, fundamentally wants to grow. It wants to dominate its environment, to assimilate what is weaker, and to express its strength. We see this everywhere in nature. Plants grow relentlessly towards the sun, their will to power driving them to seek the light and overcome any obstacle in their path. Animals fight for territory, not just for survival, but to expand their influence and assert their dominance. And humans, in their most noble expressions, create culture, art, and philosophy. All of this, for Nietzsche, is the will to power in action, an incessant, driving energy that refuses to remain small, static, or limited. And here lies the crucial point that connects this grand cosmic principle to the intimate, personal struggle of emotional control. Those who do not control their own emotions reveal, for Nietzsche, a fundamental failure in this will to power, because losing control is the very opposite of exercising power over oneself. It is a surrender. It is yielding to the brute, unthinking force of instincts, reacting like an animal without conscious thought or direction. When someone explodes with anger, they are not demonstrating power. They are demonstrating that their power has been overwhelmed by an external stimulus. When they allow themselves to be consumed by fear, or when they get lost in an endless, paralyzing sadness, they are showing the world, even without realizing it, that they cannot command even their own inner territory. And for Nietzsche, those who do not govern themselves have no right and no ability to govern anything else. This is precisely why genuine respect is never granted to those who live dominated by their own passions. Respect, in its truest form, ultimately arises from the perception of strength. And strength here is not physical brutality or violence. It is inner strength. It is discipline. It is self-control. It is the ability to remain steadfast and centered when everything around you tries to pull you away from your own core. The man or woman who demonstrates this kind of self-mastery inspires confidence because they prove, through their bearing and their actions, that they can withstand pressure, that they will not yield to the first provocation, that they will not be easily manipulated by fleeting emotions. Nietzsche saw these emotional outbursts as signs of weakness, not because he was opposed to passion, but because he believed that these outbursts reveal that the person is being lived by their emotions, rather than living their emotions consciously. The individual who screams, who despairs, who implodes or explodes without being able to choose their own reaction is, in fact, silently declaring to the world, "I have no control over myself." And this silent confession is the ruin of genuine respect. Furthermore, there is another, even deeper aspect. Those who do not control their own emotions become predictable, and the predictable is easily manipulated. Nietzsche knew that society is often governed by those who understand how to push the right buttons in others' emotions, whether through fear, wounded pride, or the promise of pleasure. The man who does not master his inner self is always vulnerable to the wills of others. He is a toy in the hands of whoever knows how to provoke him. And there is something almost tragic about this, because many of these people desperately desire respect. They want to be seen as strong, reliable leaders. But every outburst of anger, every moment of paralyzing fear, every emotional loss of control is a crack that destroys that image in the eyes of others. They begin to appear childish, unstable, and unworthy of trust. Nietzsche warns us that there is only one way to earn genuine respect, to demonstrate power over oneself. Those who prove they can govern their own inner kingdom almost effortlessly gain the admiration of those around them. There is nothing more magnetic than someone who maintains their serenity, their center, even when the world around them seems to be on fire. This is true power, the kind that cannot be bought, only earned through relentless discipline and an unyielding will. But this journey is not simple. It requires immense courage, because it means abandoning the comfortable, familiar role of victimization. It means stopping the blame, blaming the world, blaming circumstances, or blaming external provocations for our inner state. It means looking at the internal chaos and deciding, with conscious intent, to shape it. It means becoming the artist of oneself. And now, I want to provoke you. Yes, you, who have made it this far on this journey with me. I want you to tell me, in which area of your life do you feel you most need to master your emotions? Is it at work, when someone's comment or action provokes a reaction you later regret? Is it in your personal relationships, when insecurity speaks louder than love? Or is it with yourself, in the quiet moments of the night, when the internal shadows seem larger and more powerful than anything else? I want you to write it in the comments below. Say where you feel you are losing control, because the act of writing is the first, most crucial step to becoming aware. And awareness is the dawn, the very beginning, of any true transformation. And if this video has made you reflect, don't stop here. There is much more to be said, much more to be revealed. Watch the next video. It is also important because the path to self-mastery and to earning genuine, unshakable respect does not end today. It is just beginning. And if there is one thing Nietzsche taught us, it is that the will to power begins within each of us and manifests in every choice we make, even in the choice to continue learning, to continue growing, and to continue striving for mastery over ourselves. True emotional mastery is not about suppressing anything, but about consciously choosing when to feel, and most importantly, how to express it. It is having the freedom to explode with joy when the occasion calls for it, and the strength to cry when the pain tightens the chest, but without ever allowing that pain to paralyze all existence. It is the power to remain steadfast, even under the most intense provocation, not because emotions do not exist, but because one has decided, with sovereign will, that this is not the moment to let them speak. This is the supreme power of the active man, the ability to act and not just react, the power to make one's own life a work of art, where each emotion is a color consciously chosen to paint the picture of one's destiny. Nietzsche did not want to create apathetic, unfeeling beings. He wanted intense, alive, passionate men and women, but masters of their own helm. And there is a magnificent consequence that flows naturally from this self-mastery: respect, true respect. Because those who demonstrate this kind of self-governance inspire a deep, instinctual confidence in others. People often know, without even being able to fully explain it, that there is someone solid, reliable, and strong there. And as Nietzsche knew so well, only those who can overcome themselves can truly lead others, whether in a boardroom, a family, a relationship, or in the silent, daily battle of everyday life. But it is not enough to simply understand all of this intellectually. The question always remains how to take that first, decisive step towards this mastery. How to begin transforming that internal chaos into creative power, into a strength that earns genuine respect. This is precisely what we are going to unveil now. Nietzsche was never a thinker for fragile hearts. He spared no words, had no patience for comfortable illusions, and above all, he despised any form of self-deception. And that is why his message about emotions remains so relevant, so cutting, even more than a century later. Because it forces us to look in the mirror and ask a terrifyingly honest question: who is really in control? Throughout this journey, we have seen that mastering emotions does not mean erasing them, nor does it mean putting on a mask of coldness. It means, above all, exercising a profound sovereignty over oneself. It is recognizing that within every human being, there exists a whirlwind of natural forces: fear, anger, sadness, desire, passion, and that all of them are powerful energies that can both destroy and build. The ultimate difference lies only in who holds the reins of power. Nietzsche taught us that living a life dominated by impulses is to live a small life. It is to be predictably manipulative and tragically vulnerable. It is to walk through the world with invisible signs hanging around your neck, declaring to all, "Here are my emotional triggers, press them whenever you want." And in that state, no one earns genuine respect. Because respect arises from the recognition of inner strength, the ability to stand firm even when everything around screams for chaos. But we also saw that Nietzsche was not an enemy of emotions. On the contrary, he saw them as creative instruments, as the raw material for art, philosophy, and true human greatness. For him, the active man, the one who shapes the world instead of being shaped by it, is the one who knows how to use his emotions as tools, not as shackles. He is the one who transforms anger into determination, fear into strategy, and sadness into depth. Genuine respect, then, is not something that is demanded from others. It is something that is earned when one demonstrates, in a silent but absolutely perceptible way, that one is the master of their own inner territory. Those who master themselves earn, almost without a single word, the trust, the admiration, and yes, the profound respect of those around them. But this journey is not simple. It requires immense courage, because it means abandoning the comfort of victimization. It means stopping the endless cycle of blaming the world, circumstances, or external provocations for our inner state. It means looking directly at the internal chaos and deciding, with unwavering will, to shape it. It means becoming the artist of oneself, the sculptor of one's own soul. And now I want to provoke you one last time. Yes, you who have made it this far, you who feel the resonance of this truth. I want you to tell me, in which area of your life do you feel you most need to master your emotions? Is it at work when someone provokes you? Is it in your relationships when insecurity speaks louder than love? Or is it with yourself, in the quiet moments, when the internal shadows seem larger than anything else? Write in the comments. Say where you feel you are losing control, because writing is the first step to becoming aware, and awareness is the beginning of any profound transformation. And if this video made you reflect, don't stop here. There is much more to be said, much more to be revealed. Watch the next video. It is also important because the path to self-mastery and earning genuine respect does not end today. It is just beginning. And if there is one thing Nietzsche taught us, it is that the will to power begins within each of us and manifests in every choice we make, even in the choice to continue learning and growing.